Hi, welcome to Fast Forward. I'm Mike Zipser, and my guests this time are Katherine Addison and Maria B. Snyder. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome. Well, let's start out with some pandemic talk. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're doing pretty well. I mean, as an author working at home, I didn't really have any kind of major trouble transitioning like I know a lot of people did. I just kept going with my schedule and everything. The only thing for me was I had a bunch of trips canceled, and I love to travel. And that's been hard not to travel, but it actually gave me more time to get my writing done. So I was able to finish my latest I had a deadline in July, and I was able to finish that. So that was without stress. So that was good. That was good.
Katherine, you doing all right?
Yep, I'm like Maria. I work from home, so
yeah,
it's the same old basically.
Yeah, all the writers we've been talking to have the same thing to say. Like, no, we're still working. Can't work in the coffee shop, but
yeah, the working from home. I realized that like I was seeing a lot of my friends were having trouble, so I did. On Facebook, I published like 10 things from like 10 ideas of working from home. Things like getting dressed. You know, even if you're going from your sleep sweats to your daytime, yoga pants, and that's a mental thing to actually just get dressed. And different things like that I posted, which was really popular. I was surprised.
Yeah. Now, one thing, speaking of the pandemic, is you both had new books coming out hit right with the pandemic this year. Was that difficult, or did you just have to kind of do a little shift?
Well, that was weird. That was launching a book in the middle of a pandemic is really weird. I did do a bunch of virtual events at bookstores that I would otherwise not have been able to go to. So I think it evened out in person versus wider range. But it was very, very strange.
I bet. And Maria, you did some too, but you also did an actual live bookstore event.
Well, yeah, that was last Saturday. Well, actually, my book that was supposed to come out in June, The City of Zerdai, was pushed back to next June of 2021. That's an Australian release, and they wanted to push it back. So it actually didn't get released. And I know a lot of my readers were really upset because they were waiting. They had already waited a year for the book, and now they have to wait another year. So that was difficult. And but I did do Cupboard Maker Books is a independent bookstore that's a local one to me. It's kind of like my home bookstore. She carries all my books, new and some used, and she has lots of events. And they did it was a bookstore romance day on Saturday, and I think I have enough romantic elements in my stories that she invited me to come along and do group signings, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to get out and be with other authors and people, and everybody wore a face mask, and we wore face shields. She gave us all a face shield, which was kind of fun to have, because then you could talk and smile at people with So it just was kind of awkward when trying to get a drink or something. You're like, well, what do I do? Do I lift it up, or how do I manipulate it?
Yeah, what do you do with the shield?
Well, as long as it comes down past your chin, it's supposed to be and wraps around a little bit. That's what's legal, I guess. But I just kind of like tipped it up a little bit and took a drink. And then when they took pictures, I took it off because felt like I looked like I was ready for surgery or something. I was like, "Where's my?" Yeah. So, but it was fun. It was fun, and they also foster cats. They've found forever homes for over 150 cats. So it's fun to have the cats, like, they're walking across your books while you're doing a signing, or they're sitting in your lap. So it's a great book.
Have a cat, so
yeah,
I'm used to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do we all have cats, or?
Yes,
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, of course.
I have 3. So
Oh, wow.
We had 2, lost one last year, but
Mhm.
the other one's helping to make up for it. And are you still doing dressage, Catherine?
I am.
And is that something you can, I assume you can do that, with the lockdowns and stuff because it's just
Yes.
you and a horse.
Yes. No, I think in Wisconsin, barns got classified as more as outdoor space than indoor space. And you go and you see maybe 1 or 2 other people at safe distances. So yeah, I've been able to keep doing that, which is great.
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad to hear that because it gives you something, way to get out of the damn house.
Yes.
Yeah, reason to get out of the house. That's true. Yeah, I've been trying
Yeah,
to take walks and go bike riding. So
that's always good. Well, let's jump in and talk a little bit about the new books that you guys have had out this year. Catherine, your new one is Angel of the Crows,
Hmm.
which is kind of a alternate world Sherlock Holmes pastiche. I'm not sure how to describe it.
I haven't had much luck either with the elevator pitch for that one. Is just kind of, well, it's Sherlock Holmes and angels and werewolves and vampires
Hellhounds.
and hellhounds and Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
And
And it works as Sherlock Holmes. I was telling you before, my wife,
Mhm.
who is a bit of a Holmesian, wasn't sure when she heard about it, but she finished it and said she loved it.
Which is wonderful.
So it obviously works for Holmes people.
Yes. Well, I
And so that's I really liked it.
thank you.
The way you handled the classical Holmes things. I
Hmm.
mean, Holmes being Crow, who's an angel,
Yep.
was very interesting. The world building with the angels and the way they're fallen and they're tied to a place and things like that, I found fascinating. And of course, you had the Watson, who was named Doyle.
Yep.
Clever of you.
Yes.
Was, as in he should be, wounded in the Afghan war,
Hmm.
and
No.
and I like that. And something I noticed about both of the books that it just clicked in my tiny little brain today was that both of the books are written in first person, which I found really an interesting thing since you two were going to be on the show today,
Hmm.
and you don't see that often. Catherine, I realized why you did that
Yes.
because there's a secret in the book that I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it
Uh,
was kind of like why you had to do that.
well, I had to do it for that reason, and because if my they're Sherlock Holmes stories, they're told in first person.
Yes.
That's how they work.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of the Sherlock Holmes stuff is in the book.
Hmm.
The classic stories, happen in it in different
Yes.
ways.
who's
Yes.
And
the point of
Maria,
view character? Sorry, I'm just curious. Who's the point of view character? Is it Doyle?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how come you decided to do Lyra's stories in first person?
Well, I do love first person point of view, and most of my books are first person point of view. It's just something I really like. And also, young adult, it's very prevalent first person point of view. But one of the reasons I chose it for her is because her voice was so strong in my head. Like she was telling me this story, and she was very loud and snarky and like, get it on the paper, Maria, or I'm never going to shut up and you won't be able to sleep kind of personality. And so I had to do first person, and I had to do present tense because nothing else would have fit her voice for sure.
And she is such a teenager.
Oh yeah, she is.
God.
Yeah. And I like how she talks to the reader like so that she breaks that fourth wall, because that's
Mhm.
just kind of the character she is. Like she'll be like, "Oh, come on, people, you know this is going to happen. Like, don't act so
Yeah,
surprised," kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, I really like that with her. It was very
yeah.
different than all my other books.
She's a lot of fun. You want to just tell her, what the hell are you doing? Pull it together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She does some things that maybe she should stop and think about it a little bit, but
She's a
she's not telling
teenager.
me. No, yes,
We
yeah,
were all like that. Yeah, we all did stupid things when we were teenagers.
yes. And I like how too I kept her parents alive and normal and part
Yeah,
of her life. That's
yeah,
another thing that goes against the YA trope conventions. Usually, there's a dead parent, or the parents are drunk or missing in action. But no, I made sure that they were there and engaged in her life, and they added a source of conflict,
yeah.
which I thought was, and also some humor too. That was fun. So that was another difference I took from the YA genre. I did a little twist on that too.
So I'm curious for both of you about the research you did for these two books, because the Sentinels of the Galaxy, the Navigating the Stars and the New Chasing the Shadows, are far future hard SF, and Angel of the Crows is, like I said, it's like a fantasy Holmes story. But what kind of research, Catherine, did you have to do? Because you had to be able to know the Victorian times and the world of Sherlock Holmes to know what the changes were
Hmm.
with the fantastical elements that were in that world.
Yeah, well, I read a lot of books about Jack the Ripper.
That's obvious.
Yes. Which in doing so, I learned a lot about London in 1888, and that was, I think, that was that, and some Google work.
Mhm.
Google Earth was very obliging about helping me figure out where things geographically were in London. But that was really, well, that and reading Sherlock Holmes again, which was no difficulty.
So I am assuming that you figured out what changes were there in the society because of the fact that there were angels and they had been there, and there were also the vampire. I loved your vampires, by the way,
Thank you.
and what you did with Moriarty and all that. Just that was a lot of fun because it wasn't what you expected
Mm-hmm.
when he showed up, because he's a vampire, but he's not a bad guy.
My vampires are not
Yeah.
bad. They're fiscally prudent
Mm-hmm.
and have worked out a really quite reasonable arrangement with the human government. So
And
yes.
and the other fantastic, the werewolves and creatures like that are registered, or supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be, with
Mm-hmm.
the government.
Yep.
which lends some very nice political aspects to the story, and led to secrets that need to be kept,
Yes.
which is another thing that's similar in both of the books, because Lyra has her secrets too.
She does.
Yeah, in that there's the QNet, and she can get to it without having to, she
Yeah.
can just get there in her head into what's their equivalent of the internet, but much
Right.
more
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
And something I haven't brought up yet, this is science fiction with terracotta warriors and archaeologists. Turns
Right.
out they're on other worlds.
Right. Right. Yeah. Terracotta warriors in space is my elevator pitch.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that you're talking about research. I did a lot of research on the terracotta warriors to make sure that they were accurate. I mean, they're on, exoplanets out in the galaxy, but they're accurate. And I even went to China back in November, early November, and saw them in person, which was just unbelievable, just unbelievable. Yeah, it was my favorite part of the whole trip, I think, was seeing them and in person. I wanted to go down and touch them, but you couldn't. There was plenty of guards with guns, and not just handguns, but like big rifles and AK-47 type guns. I'm like, wow, it was pretty hardcore. But yeah, so that's one of that was some of the research I did for the books. And then, the science fiction element, I actually went to Launchpad, which is a week-long astronomy workshop for writers. It's run at the University of Wyoming by Mike Botherton and Christian Reddy. Mike's a PhD doctor over there at Wyoming, and we spent 6 days, 12-hour days, just learning everything about astronomy and space and everything. I felt like I should have gotten a bachelor's degree after that week. Because it was that intensive. I mean, we were up late and then we were up late talking about all the various movies that were out there and like what they did right with the science and what they did wrong with the science. So I was very conscious of trying to get the science right because I didn't want to disappoint them.
Yeah. And Katherine, from what I was reading, it said that the Angel of the Crows started out as a game.
Basically, it started out. I started writing it just for me, just to see. Well, okay, I have this crazy idea about what if Sherlock Holmes was an angel. Let's see what happens.
As one does.
Exactly. And because it was just for me, I threw in the vampires and the werewolves and the hellhounds and all of the other stuff. I've also called it my kitchen sink novel because really I just threw everything on in there. But then when my editor asked me what I was working on and I told her, she was like, "Oh, that's great. When can I see it?" It's like, oh, I thought it was much too weird for a publishing house to be interested in it. But apparently I was wrong.
Obviously, yeah. So, and it was something, and you talked about it in either the introduction or the afterword or something, a type of fanfic that I'd never heard of, which is wingfic.
Yep.
Why don't you explain about wingfic?
It's a subgenre of fan fiction in which one or more characters have wings. And they can all be winged. They can be one person be winged. Wings can be perfectly normal in the society. It can be this freak thing that nobody knows what to do about. It can be angels, can be not angels, just wings. Something with wings.
Something with wings. And and Sherlock has wings. Or Crow, as
Crow. Yes.
Crow has wings, and that he occasionally will knock over the tea service.
Yes, well, once I started thinking about what the wingspan of an actual angel would be, there was no way there wasn't going to be some breakage of China.
Because he's in the small digs that he and Doyle have. It's not a large apartment.
No.
And the thing that was really interesting was kind of the society of the angels, how the angels worked, that they are tied to a place, usually a particular building.
Yep.
And that is their name. And if they lose that, they become unnamed.
Yep.
And go over some of that. I found that just really an interesting way of handling that kind of thing, that the angels.
Well, my angels ended up being, I mean, they are there is Christianity in this world, and the Christian angels are angels, but they're more really like what the Romans called the genius loci, the spirit of a place. So they have a place. They have a local habitation and a name, because the Shakespeare wouldn't get out of my head. And when they lose their name, they become one of the nameless, which are the angels that wander the streets of London, hoping to be attracted to somewhere that needs an angel, so that they can get a habitation and a name.
Including pubs.
Yes. Any public building.
Yes. And the Mycroft character is, I believe, the Angel of Whitehall.
Yes.
And there's also another friend of Crow's, which is the Angel of the Great Synagogue.
Yep.
So, they're everywhere. And there's
Yes.
the angels in the pub. It's delightful. Delightful. Yep. And I like the way you built that in and worked how the society works with that and how that all fits together, which is part of what fantasy and science fiction does. You take the what ifs and then build from that. Maria, you do that with, this is an interstellar society. And so when they fly from place to place, they have to deal with the time dilation effect.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because I was so annoyed by all those other science fiction novels and movies where they zip across galaxies and, there's no consequence. But, the faster you go, the more the time warps. So I tried to factor that in, and then I tried to factor in how that would affect relationships and families and everything. And that ended up being a really big part of the stories, which was kind of surprising because I wasn't really planning on it. But then I don't really plan out my novels anyway. So
you're a pantser?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I get an idea, terracotta warriors in space, and let's go with it. Like, why are they there? Who put them there? And let's figure it out. Yeah.
Catherine, are you a pantser or an outliner?
I am generally a pantser. The Angel of the Crows was different in that it actually has a structure.
Yes.
Which many of my books I would not have structures, but they're structures that grew very organically, and this was a structure that I sort of built.
So Goblin Emperor, which is your previous book, that was just went from the premise.
It did.
And that one I love too. My wife read it before I did and said, you got to read this.
Always nice.
Yes.
Yeah. And that one had an interesting structure as well, because it broke what I think of as rules, which is, action doesn't take place off screen. And in Goblin Emperor, it did. So, and it's a standalone, right? You're not planning a sequel to it?
I am writing more books in that universe, but they are not sequels.
Now, are we going to get more from Angel of Crows?
I don't know. I think I've really the thing I was doing is done in that book. So I don't know. I find mysteries are very hard for me to work out. So if I don't have Arthur Conan Doyle to borrow from, I'm not quite sure what I do.
I hear that. And but you had said the third book in the Sentinels of the Galaxy.
Yes.
That is finished now?
Yes. In fact, I told you I had edits due yesterday, and that was the final round, the page proof stage of the edits. So yes, it is finished. And
that's what, your 19th or 20th book?
I think that'll be my 20th published novel. Yes. It was funny because I finished it in like January. So I was like so happy with the numbers, I finished my 20th book in 2020. And then it's also going to be, released in 2020. I was excited about that until 2020 turned out to be Not the best of years.
So this is all your fault.
Yes, I jinxed 2020. There you go. It's all on me.
And yeah, but you've also got the City of the Zerdai that's coming out a year late.
Series, yes, that's I finished the third book of that fantasy series in July. That was the one I was able to get done because my travel was canceled. Yeah, that's been coming out through Australia, and they're the ones who pushed it back. So that won't see the light of day till maybe late 2021. I'm not sure, but yeah, I wrote 6 books in 3 years, and you see my hair curly. My hair used to be straight.
No, it didn't.
There's a lot of gray hair in here starting to pop up now. I blame it on those 6 books, you know.
That's insane.
That was insane, yes. So I'm very happy to be done with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like resting because people are like, well, what's next? My readers are always about what's next. And I'm like,
I was wondering what you guys were working on now. But obviously you're working on not writing anything for a little bit.
Right. I like to put together some of my short stories into a collection. I think that like a fun project to do, and maybe write a few new ones to put in. So for those who have read all my short stories, they have a couple of new ones for them. So I think I'm going to be doing some fun projects for a little bit here, just to kind of, take a break and not have that deadline.
Doing some stretches after all the exercise.
Yeah.
And Katherine, what are you working on?
I'm working on the next novel in the Goblin Emperor universe, actually, or more accurately, the next novel, because I've turned in the next novel. I'm working on the one after that.
Oh, is that a Goblin Emperor universe?
Yep. The Goblin Emperor books. It turns out that the new one does have sequels. So.
Oh, okay. So you're actually going to do some sequels?
Yes.
Yes. We have a question from the people watching, and it's from Maria. What's your favorite thing about doing research for your books? Actually, Katherine, you can answer that too.
Oh yeah, I love doing hands-on research. That's one of my favorite things, is to actually go out and experience, like visiting the Terracotta Warriors. That was a blast because I love to travel anyway. So adding in a research trip while I'm out and about is great. That's a favorite thing. And also, learning things hands-on. Like I took a glass blowing class and learned how to blow glass and work with molten glass for my glass series of books. And, I got to visit a maximum security correctional facility, a prison, which was kind of scary and kind of interesting at the same time. So like getting out and actually experiencing these things, because I think that's the best way to translate. You can read about something, you can do a lot of research, books and, TV shows or whatever. But when you actually, like, I'd never ridden a horse before, which Katherine, I think that you do when you do dressage. Thought that was really fascinating because I've heard about it and I learned to ride a horse. I was terrified the entire time because they're big animals.
Yes, they are.
And I was not exactly as young. When you get older, you get a little bit more cautious. Mm-hmm. But I did it. I learned how to ride and take care of a horse, groom a horse and everything. And, been around horses for a good year there, just so I can translate that for the readers. So that's one of my favorite things. And it's an excuse to, get out of the house.
Yeah, Katherine, what's your favorite part of the research?
I love reading. I do, and I love nonfiction. So I read a lot of history just for fun, and some of it sort of eventually I'm like, oh, that was why I was reading all those Jack the Ripper books. Now I know.
So like Maria, you didn't decide to go and actually be a serial killer just as the research. Didn't want the hands-on. Well, that's good.
I'm not that hands-on.
good to hear
You
that.
have to be a little bit of an actor, I think, or a psychologist when you're writing about characters like Jack the Ripper. I mean, you have to get into their mindset. Now, of course, with something a historical figure, Catherine, that's her only recourse is to do a lot of research and reading about that, so you can get into what he was thinking at that time period.
Yeah.
And there's a huge amount of books and things on Jack the Ripper. I read a lot of Jack the Ripper stuff when I was younger, and there's a lot, and there's more all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're still finding things out. And my husband was watching a show about them using the map of his victims to kind of hone in to where he lived, which I thought was really fascinating and everything. And that's one of the reasons I don't do historical, because too, even if it's fiction, I mean, Catherine has to get the details right. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, somebody's going to be saying, "Oh, wait a minute, that didn't happen in 1888. That happened in 1892." And I'm like, because there are readers out there that are that,
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you make the left off of Oxford Street, between those two streets, you don't get to that. You go somewhere else.
Right. Right. Yeah. So kudos to you. I'm really fascinated. I'm gonna pick up that book now, because after hearing you talk about it.
Oh, it's cool. It's really cool. And it's got like almost all of the classic home stories in it tied into, what the characters, Doyle and Crow, and what they are and what that world is like. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, sounds
it's a lot, and it's a lot of fun too.
I had a lot of fun writing it.
I bet. Somebody wants me to explain pantser versus outliner. My understanding is pantser is somebody that writes by the seat of their pants and just takes the idea and just starts writing, and then goes back and fixes things. An outliner is somebody that has the story and the structure and everything worked out ahead of time and then writes to that. Is that right?
That's about right. I mean, I do a little bit of combination of, I do plot some things out ahead of time, because you can't, I usually generally know where the ending is going to be. So I have a direction in mind. Like, I know I want to end up in Texas, but how I'm going to get there will change. As I'm driving down, I'll be like, "Oh, look at that. Let's turn off this and let's go explore this state first." Like a plotter, my friend Mindy Klasky is a plotter, and she has on her wall Post-it notes and the 3-act structure on her wall, and all the Post-it notes for all the different scenes. Wow. And it's amazing. It's pretty. It's like, wow, this is really amazing, but I could never do that.
Yeah, and it's not that one's better than the other. Some of my favorite writers do both. Some of them are outliners and some of them are pantsers, and just what works right for that author. We have a question from the audience. Nat T wants to know, what's your favorite thing about being an author?
Well,
Catherine, go ahead, Maria.
All right, I'll go. I think my favorite thing is my readers, actually, and interacting with my readers and having an influence on them, which I'm really was surprised about, because I have a lot of young adult readers, and they're a lot more influenced by the books they read, I think. And so I've had readers go to and take karate classes because they want to be able to defend themselves and fight like my main characters. I've had them, be inspired to write or to draw, or I get all kinds of fan art and poetry and different things, and that's just really is amazing. And I think that's like the best thing from this is that interaction and those having that influence on my readers and them on me, because if I'm having a down day or something, and I'll get an email from somebody, and then it'll just change my whole mood. It's just amazing.
Catherine?
I love making things up. It just,
I guess you better like that, or you're in the wrong business.
Very much in the wrong business. But I told myself stories for a long time before I wrote any of them down, and I feel weird and incomplete if I don't have something I'm making up. So I agree with Maria, though, that readers are fantastic,
Yeah.
and the feedback that you get is amazing. Get lots of good fan art for the Goblin Emperor.
Oh, I bet. I
Mhm.
bet. And yeah, and I like the fact that you agree that Goblin Emperor was a steampunk book.
Yes. Yes,
Because
that was on
reading it, I
purpose.
went, wow, you don't see a lot of goblins in steampunk, but I like it.
Hmm.
One of the things I'm curious about with these times we're living in is, do you guys think that what we're going through with the pandemic and what it's doing to all of us is going to be affecting what is created later on? I mean, in 2 or 3 years, are we going to see stories and books that are all tied to being locked down and pandemics and wearing masks and things like that? Or do you think it's just going to be another thing that went on? And I mean, do you think there's going to be effects on fiction, particularly science fiction and fantasy?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say in like the romance genre and some of the more contemporary genres, yeah, I would think it would have a big impact on that, because that's a little bit more realistic. I think as far as fantasy and science fiction, I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact, or maybe some of the more dystopian stuff will be a little bit different, because I think a lot of the predictions for plagues and things and how society reacted, I think nobody could predict the whole, coins shortage, or the the toilet paper shortage. Like, I didn't read any of the post-apocalyptic books had anything mentioned about that. So I think it might change, like a more, if anybody's writing like the dystopian, some of the odd things that have happened because of this pandemic.
Yeah, maybe urban fantasy.
Yeah, that might change a bit.
And modern horror, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I know, like Jonathan Mayberry was writing, Patient Zero, from before. So I always wonder what he thinks about what's going on right now, because he has, that was a pretty good book.
All right. Well, oh, by the way, Katherine, you are one of the pen geeks that I know of, the writers that are into the fancy pens and the inks and things like that. It's not my thing, but I love listening to the writers that are, geek out over pens doing their little pen geek thing. I just love it. It get very passionate about it.
Yes. It's I write a lot by hand, and it actually makes a big difference whether you have a pen that you enjoy writing with or not. So, and inks come in just the most amazing colors. And
yeah, I know Eliette de Bedard is,
yes,
tea and pens and ink is kind of like her life.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of other ones. And I wonder if it is the writers that write by hand.
I don't. I know my friend Elizabeth Bear, who is a pen geek and does a lot of longhand writing. So there may be a correlation there.
Yeah.
I have special signing pens that I like that I carry around and guard with my life, so nobody walks off with them. I don't write. I write on the computer, but I do. It's interesting because I pick them out, and I'm a very like, I have my little pen case here where I take them, and they're all different colors and everything. Yeah. That's interesting. I think, because some books, it's hard to sign with a ballpoint. You need something that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I didn't know there was a whole bunch of people that were like into
fountain pen geeks.
You start following writers on like Twitter and places, and those have pictures of the new pen they got.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's
And
hardcore. Yeah.
and a picture
Yes.
of the new color ink they got that they're going to use. Do you use different color inks for your different books?
I
You do?
tend to use different color inks to differentiate different things I'm working on in my notebooks, so that I can flip through the pages and go, oh, this is all from this book and this is from that book, and the random ideas that come in the middle. You're writing along on one thing and you have this great idea for something else. I'll switch colors to note it down.
That's another thing I've noticed about most of the writers is they all have notebooks.
Mm-hmm.
And they get very picky about their notebook.
Yes, that too is true.
That's
and
fun.
it's like if you wanted to destroy a writer, take away their notebook so they can't have a notebook. They would explode. There's a horror story. There you go.
Yes, there's a horror story.
I have weapons. I will come after you. I do. My office is filled.
Yeah. So were you guys, something I'm always curious about with particularly with creative people, writers, artists, actors, people like that, was this something you always knew you were going to do? Were you always a storyteller?
Well,
yes.
Oh.
Yeah. As soon as I realized that books were written by real people, that was what I wanted to do.
And Maria?
No, I was always creative. Like I always was involved in like dance or acting or doing artwork, but I never ever considered writing because I wasn't very good at English and spelling in school. I was into music and more athletic stuff, and it wasn't until I graduated college that I started writing down the stories that I had daydreams of. In fact, I know Katherine said about writing for herself because she was a big Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper was interesting to her. My first book, Poison Study, was kind of the same thing. It was like writing for myself because I was seeing something missing in fantasy that I really wanted to see. So I was like, well, I'm going to just do it myself. And that's kind of where things got started. So it's kind of interesting. My family laughs because they're like, this is the same kid that could not spell or could not write a grammatically correct sentence, Maybe
that's why you write on the computer.
Yeah, probably. My handwriting is awful.
Oh, me too. So were you a theater nerd in high school?
Yes. Yeah, I was theater. I played the cello. I was in the shows.
I was a theater nerd too, and so was my wife, Beth.
Yeah. Yeah.
We met doing community theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I knew I wasn't good enough to like make a living out of it.
Me too.
So I went to college for something that I knew that I could actually get a job and pay my bills. And then that's why I started writing, because all that creative energy pretty much disappeared. And so I kind of needed a way to still tap into that.
And Katherine, so you always were going to be a writer from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I figured out that you could really be that.
Yeah. That such things existed.
Which took a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now you am one.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. That's one of my short bios is, thank you. Katherine Addison wanted to be a writer when she grew up, and now she is.
Yes.
So.
And that's that.
Yes, there you go.
Yes. Well, we are basically out of time. I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your schedule to join us here and chat with us. It was a ball. I had a wonderful time.
It was fun. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. And I want to let everyone know to remember to the people watching this on YouTube to go and subscribe so that you know what's going on our YouTube channel. Like this video on YouTube because that helps us. And if you click the little bell, then you will get an email when there's new Fast Forward stuff on our YouTube channel. And there will be comments below on YouTube and possibly on Facebook. This is the first time we've gone live to Facebook. So to let you know where Katherine and Maria live online, their websites, their Twitters and Facebookings and all of that social media stuff. And we'll have comments for that online. So thank you everybody for watching. And those of you watching later on, thank you for doing that. And I guess this is Mike Zipser for Fast Forward saying, take care, stay safe, wash your damn hands, wear a mask.